Hi guys, welcome back. So today we are going to do stoichiometry. Our focus for today is limiting reactant. So today our learning outcomes will be, first we're going to learn to define what is a limiting reactant. Secondly, we are going to do stoichiometric calculations to determine limiting reactant in the chemical equation. Okay, so what is limiting reactant? Limiting reactant is actually a reactant which is completely consumed in a reaction. Okay, so limiting reactant will control or limit the amount of product that can be formed in a chemical reaction. Alright guys, let's try with this simple example to determine the limiting reactant. We are going to prepare cheese sandwich, which for each set of cheese sandwich, we will need 2 pieces of sliced bread with 1 slices of cheese. Anna has 10 pieces of sliced bread and 7 pieces of cheese. From this amount of bread and cheese that she has, can you determine how many sets of cheese sandwich that Anna can produce? And can you state what is the limiting reactant in this example? In this case, sliced bread and cheese are our reactants, whereas cheese sandwich is our product. Let's break down our information into small pieces. From 10 pieces of sliced bread that Anna has, she's going to make 5 sets of cheese sandwich. Okay, Anna has 7 pieces of cheese, and therefore Anna can produce 7 sets of cheese sandwich. Both reactants, which is sliced bread and cheese, produce different amount of cheese sandwich. Therefore, from this amount of ingredients that are available, we need to determine what is the limiting reactant. From the calculation given in the screen, we can see sliced bread produce less number of sets of cheese sandwich compared to the cheese that are available. Therefore, we can conclude the sliced bread control the amount of cheese sandwich that we can produce or Anna can make. Therefore, we can say sliced bread is the limiting reactant in our example. Okay, so based on the example that I give to you just now, I hope the simple analogy about making cheese sandwich can make you understand about limiting reactant better. So now, let's focus more on chemistry problem which you're going to meet in the exam. Okay, so in this question, aluminium was allowed to react with sulfuric acid to produce aluminium sulfate and hydrogen gas. Okay, in the reaction chamber, we have 10 grams of aluminium and it's going to react with 115 grams of sulfuric acid. The question here is, what is the limiting reactant in this reaction? Is it aluminium or is it sulfuric acid? So how are we going to figure out what is the limiting reactant? In order for you to determine the limiting reactant in a reaction, you need to undergo several steps. Okay, so the very first step will be you need to write down, check and balance a chemical equation. Sometimes in the question, they will only give you a problem statement in which from the problem statement given, you need to come up with the chemical equation. Okay, But sometimes, like for example in this question, you are already given a chemical equation, but you need to check either the chemical equation given is already balanced or not. Okay, let's check together. From the given chemical equation, we can see in the reactant we have one aluminium atom, but in the product there are two aluminium atoms. That means this chemical equation is still unbalanced. So, you need to balance the chemical equation before you proceed to the next step. After balancing the chemical equation, you will get this result, which is 2 mole of aluminium is reacting with 3 mole of sulfuric acid to produce 1 mole of aluminium sulfate and 3 mole of hydrogen gas. After we obtain a balanced chemical equation, we can move on to the second step, which is to calculate the number of moles of the reactants that are available in the reaction. In our question here, aluminium and sulfuric acid are our reactants. They give you 10 grams of aluminium and 115 grams of sulfuric acid in the reaction chamber. Do you still remember how do you calculate number of moles of a substance? From the given mass of the substance, we can calculate the number of moles by dividing the mass of the substance with its molar or molecular mass. Okay, let's start with aluminium. There are 10 grams of aluminium. To get the number of moles of aluminium, we need to divide 10 grams of aluminium with 27 grams per mole, which is the molar mass of aluminium. As a result, we will obtain the number of moles of aluminium is equivalent to 0.741 mole. For sulfuric acid, number of moles of sulfuric acid is obtained by dividing 115 grams of sulfuric acid with its molecular mass. What is molecular mass? Molecular mass is the sum of molar mass of the elements that are present in the molecule. So as a result, the number of moles of sulfuric acid is equivalent to 1.172 mole. Right, now we can move to the next step. From the calculated moles of the reactant, we can perform stoichiometry relationship to determine what is the limiting reactant. There are two ways on how you can do your stoichiometry relationship, which is either you compare between reactant and reactant, or you are comparing reactant with the product. Okay, in my video for today, I am going to focus on comparing between reactant and product for my stoichiometry relationship. Okay, these are the number of moles of aluminium we obtained, which is 0.741 mole, and for sulfuric acid is 1.172 mole. Okay, these two moles are actually the number of moles of reactants that are available in the reaction chamber. Okay, based on the given chemical equation, 2 moles of aluminium is reacting with 1 mole of aluminium sulfate. Okay. We only have 0.741 mole of aluminium. That means we only can produce 0.371 mole of aluminium sulfate. Okay. Let's look for sulfuric acid. Based on the chemical equation, 3 moles of sulfuric acid going to produce 1 mole of aluminium sulfate. That means from 1.172 mole of sulfuric acid, we only can produce 0.391 mole of aluminium sulfate. side. So as you can see, both aluminium and sulfuric acid produce different number of moles of aluminium sulfate. Can you now figure out which is the limiting reactant? Is it aluminium or is it sulfuric acid? Okay, that is the last step, which is we need to state what is the limiting reactant. Based on the calculation that we made before through stoichiometric relationship, we can see that aluminium produces smaller number of moles of aluminium sulfate compared to sulfuric acid. Therefore, we can conclude that aluminium is the limiting reactant in this reaction. Okay, so let's recap the steps that you need to follow and you have to remember at all the time, every time you are given a limiting reactant question. Okay, so first step, you always need to check your chemical equation. It must be balanced before you proceed to the calculation part. Secondly, you need to calculate the number of moles of all the reactants that are available. After that, you're going to do a stoichiometry relationship to determine what is the limiting reactant. From the stoichiometry relationship that you have done, you can move to the next step, which is to write a statement which is the limiting reactant. Okay, I hope you already understand on how to determine the limiting reactant. So now, let's challenge yourself. Okay, you are given this question and I am going to give you 15 minutes to try on this question. Your 15 minutes begin now. Alright guys, if you try the question, you will obtain through the calculation, ammonia is the limiting reactant in the production of fertilizer urea. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoy our lesson for today and I'm going to see you in the next chapter. Bye!